Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. You join us on the back. We have finally done it, guys. We've finally beaten Fulham in the bloody Premier League, and it feels great to say as much. Let's see who we've got joining us on the show today. We welcome, first of all, from Down Under, Mr. Phil. How are you doing, my friend?
Very excited after what happened over the weekend. Still waking up, admittedly. It's quite early over here, as I was just explaining to Joe. It's getting seasonal here. We don't even have any natural light to take advantage of this morning. So I've made a hell of a commitment for the podcast. I'm just going to put that out there.
He has. So fair play to Phil for joining us at six or seven in the morning.
Well, it's seven now, but I had to get up at 6 to finish watching the full game that I had to go back to. So yeah.
See, these are the standards we set at Albion Obsessed. And also joining us on the podcast today for the fourth time, and we're very honoured to be joined by himself again, is Mr. Stephen Edwards, the chef of the Tunnel Club and Hecke. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm really good, thank you. Good to see you both. And yeah, really excited, especially after the fourth Premier League win in a row.
Yeah, exactly that. It's been a crazy upturn in form since the dreaded 7-0 loss against Forest, which we spoke at length about before, didn't we, Phil? But yeah, it feels good to be on the back of now 6 in all competitions. So yeah, really, really good. First of all, before we talk about football, we're going to talk about food. So first of all, Stephen, how has the Tunnel Club been treating you this year?
Really good. I think what's nice now is we're settled. We're in a routine. The guests absolutely love it, and I almost like take inspiration from them. So at the weekend, they're coming up with ideas for me to cook, which is always nice. So I'll take on like a banoffee pie, which went down really well. See, those are like the sort of dishes I wouldn't normally do or think of, but if they're going to suggest it, then I'm going to do it.
Fair enough. Always setting you challenges, keeping you on your toes. You was subject to some very, very nice comments by a certain Gary Neville earlier in the season. So how did that feel?
That was, it really took me back. I knew Gary was coming in. Then they just wanted some like bread and some snacks to have in front of them while they were doing a piece for Sky Sports. And I just remember him and Jamie Carragher sitting down and looking at the menu, and then they ordered off the menu, which took me by surprise. But they absolutely loved it. It was like a pleasure to cook for them. It did make service a little bit more tricky, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, what's that extra stress like of having to serve two of the media's big names?
Yeah, it wasn't really who they were. When you're in service, you can only do what you can do. The pressure it was at the start of service, and it was almost like holding everything back. And we were very conscious, especially at the Tunnel Club or any pre-game food, is we've only got a certain window to serve that, and the later it goes on, it just squashes everything into like an hour and a half, which makes it very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I don't know when it's going to be now, because obviously the Aston Villa game has been moved. So I'm not sure if it's going to coincide with the FA Cup or the rearranged Villa game. But the Terrace is opening, and you've just announced a new sort of side gig as well as the Tunnel Club called Bites. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it'll definitely be open for that Villa game on the 2nd of April. We are looking at potentially bringing that forward to the game earlier, because of the FA Cup game, because it's only a few days. But what's really exciting about it is, or anyone that's been to the stadium has seen this building, the construction that's happening outside the club shop, and I'm really proud to be part of it. It's something very different than what I've done before. I'm known for fine dining and high-end cooking, and when the club approached me to come up with a concept that was more fast food and something a little bit different, I jumped at the chance. I wanted that opportunity to show that my food can be accessible as well.
Yeah, so is that going to be like a mainstay in the Terrace, being served like every match day after that?
Yes, so we are one of 4 lockers. So you've got Lost Boys chicken in there as well, a concept called Zen, and almost like a coffee bakery dessert bar going in. But yeah, we're going to be there every home game, but also every away game. They're going to be showing there in the week as well. So it's not just a match day experience. I think where it's positioned is someone could go and buy a football shirt, go and have a burger while they're waiting for the train on the way home, and we're going to be there.
Yeah, nice. So nice that the club has sort of repaid that faith in you with obviously the success of the Tunnel Club and having you in the Terrace and, you know, building it up as the thing that people need to come in and eat there. So what can people expect in terms of menu and what would be available?
So it's a burger and hot dog concept. So nothing new there. But what I am focusing on is what's made me successful is focusing on quality produce, tasty food, maybe slightly unusual combinations, but nothing too crazy. But a lot of thought's gone into the construction of like the signature burger, you know, right from the bun to which cheese we're using, the type of lettuce. We're really proud of the product. So, the signature is our Lord beef. So it's dry aged beef patties with like a beautiful sesame seeded bun, French's mustard mayo, lettuce, tomato, gherkins, and Swiss cheese. And then on the opposite side of the menu, we're doing these lovely beef hot dogs served in a Japanese milk bread sub with curry ketchup and crispy onions. But what I'm actually quite interested in is we've done this like vegan burger. So it's a Kentucky fried onion patty served in a charcoal bun with hash brown and beetroot ketchup, which I'm not really known for vegan and vegetarian food, but we needed to put an option on the menu. And I love the challenge of coming up with something a little bit different. I didn't want to do just like a meat substitute and just keep it like similar. I wanted to make it stand out on its own.
Yeah, I know for a fact that Tom, our regular host, will be very happy with that. He is a vegan and has made that known to us. It's a running joke, but he would definitely be up for trying that. We've got a question from
speaking my language.
Yeah,
I'm not fully, but yeah, I don't really eat a lot of meat these days, so it sounds.
But we want it.
Good.
Yeah, we want it to be popular just because it tastes great. Do you know what I mean? We don't want it just to be like, oh, we've done this because it's an alternative. We want it to be like a standalone and tasty, and that's how I've always kind of approached food. So hopefully that goes down well.
Yeah, exactly that. We've got a question in from one of our viewers here. So my daughter is going to culinary school right now. Do you have any advice for an upcoming chef?
Yeah, I think carry on with the culinary school. We do stages in restaurants. That's what I always recommend. So it's just applying to local restaurants. Can you work there for a couple of days a week free of charge? And really, really put yourself out of your comfort zone and see, do I like this restaurant? Do I like that style of food? Am I learning enough? And just because it doesn't work in one restaurant doesn't mean that it won't work in another. And that's exactly kind of how my journey started. Was I didn't actually like working in like such a fast-paced environment where it is quite chaotic. I preferred the fine dining route where you have more time to concentrate, but then the pressure's there to deliver on a consistent basis.
Yeah, talking of pressure and fast pace, what is the prep like for a big dinner service or at the Tunnel Club or even prepping for your new venture Bites in the Terrace? Like I can barely put together my own dinner and add my daughter's dinner on top. I get stressed with that. So what's that stress like?
Yeah, and I think that's important to remember is that we've got an amazing facility at Brighton and Hove. Like the kitchen is top of the range. But for us, for example, the Tunnel Club, it feeds 60 members. It's nearly 100 hours worth of preparation. So we're there 4 days before kickoff. Getting the orders in, checking it all through, and then start preparation 3 days out. It's quite a lot of work for 60 people, but that's what we're there to do is give them the best experience they possibly can have.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in, Joe. Shout out to chefs, by the way, because like I don't know how they do it with the stresses and the the pressure and the hours that a lot of them have to work as well, and just the demand that is out there these days. Everyone just, whips out their phone and expects food to arrive, 30 minutes later, like whatever they want. And like, honestly, chefs are just superheroes these days. I don't know how you guys do it. So hats off to you.
Thank you, mate. that's really nice.
Fair play.
Yeah, I mean, we love what we do, and I just love seeing people's reactions to eating my food. That's what gets me through. When you're working those out, it doesn't feel like you're working if you're enjoying it.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly that. And that is the ultimate dream, is to do something you love, and it never feels like a day's work. So there you go, Adrian. There's some lovely advice from a MasterChef winner himself. So you clip that and send it to your daughter, and she'll replay it every single day, and she'll become just as good, if not better than Stephen. I'm joking. No one can be better than Stephen. Right. That's food. So get yourselves down to the Terrace when it opens. Accessible to everyone. Try bites. It's going to be very, very exciting. And yeah, fill your boots, because I think a lot of people, in terms of what they get on the normal terraces, like in the stands, Sodexo, I don't think they provide to the standard that people expect. So if you're wanting quality, you're going to get quality. You're going to get Stephen Edwards. So go and buy it and eat it, and let Stephen know what you think. But let's talk about football. Phil, we finally beat Fulham. How were you feeling sort of before the game, this hoodoo? Do you believe in hoodoos? Is it something that you think, is it going to coincide with our form? Is it going to end our form? What are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, well, my history on the podcast probably spans about just over a year now. And I believe I've come on the show before a Fulham game twice now. And they've made me look incredibly stupid. I think both of those games, funnily enough, were Craven Cottage games, not at the Amex. But I'd learnt my lesson, and had I come on to this podcast last week, there was no chance that I was confidently calling out a win. I was just sitting back very quietly and nervously over the last several days leading up to the game. I must admit, I wasn't willing to put any kind of predictions out there, because although I did, as you'll remember, Joe, on our little WhatsApp group, I said, "Can this be the day? Can this be the effing day?" And that's where I left it. That's as far as I was willing to take it.
Yeah, so he dropped that in the chat, Stephen, and then he beggared off to bed.
And then I went to bed.
Slept through the game. Honestly, I don't know how you do it, Phil, because I just could not sleep through. Obviously, it's very, very late for you guys, and you'll be knackered anyway. But like, I just couldn't do it. Do you like wake up in like the night and like dream of the result at all, or what goes on?
Yeah, I suppose just a little bit for the listeners. My plan normally with any kind of daytime or afternoon game in the UK, it's smack bang in the middle of the night for us. I love the night games because I can wake up, whether it's 5, 6, 7 a.m. and then just watch it. But with these types of games, I do just try to get a good night's sleep and then wake up and not touch my phone, just turn it on. The Optus Sport that does all the games here, that there's a spoiler proof version of the platform. So I just hit play and then put myself through the same torture that every UK based or wherever they are fan has already put themselves through, I suppose. Sometimes it can't be the full game because I just don't have time. So I'll put the 30-minute version or whatever, which ended up being what I did the other morning before going back and watching some more of it. But sometimes I do wake up and I look at the time and I know that the game is on at that point in time, and I just try to not touch the phone and leave some element of surprise when I'm watching it.
No, that's fair enough. I don't know how you do it. Let's see who we've got in the chat today. So we've already mentioned Adrian. Hello to you. Hello to Joanna. Hello to Michael. Hello to Luke Links, the Brighton vlogger legend. How are you doing, mate? And yeah, I think that's about all we've got at the moment. So get your questions in and comment along as we chat to Stephen and Phil. And yeah, we'll come to your points as and when they become relevant. Stephen, are you a believer in hoodoos? Did you feel that Brighton might, put that to bed?
Yeah, I do. I do believe in it. I do think it affects the players. I think, football's a game of fine margins. And if you've got that mindset that you have been beaten by this team over multiple occasions, that's always in the back of your mind. And I don't think it helps. But what is good now is that we've got that win. So hopefully that's one less thing that we have to worry about next season.
Yeah, and Hertzler's been massive this season on, especially of late, of getting that message across of pushing their limits. And I think Brighton really had to sort of reach those limits against Fulham in parts. Do you feel like the kick up the bum from the Forest game has been setting that standard?
100%. It's almost like one of those things that, as a fan, you don't want the club to have to go through, like a loss like that. But actually, on the flip side, it's actually brought the team together. It's almost like this is what happens if we don't concentrate. This is what happens if we're not all working as a team. And what's been really good is the reaction.
Yeah, exactly that. We've got Curtis in the chat saying, "Sorry, I couldn't join. Silly computer." Yes, I'm angry at your computer, Curtis. You'll have to go to HR and report an absence. I'm joking. You're fine. And Adrian says, Fabian said he'd never heard of the curse in the press conference before the game, Phil. Do you think that was true?
Possibly, but I'm not sure. I'm enjoying getting to know Fabian Hertzler, the manager, and his quirks and all that kind of stuff. And I think he's hard to read. He's honestly quite hard to read. He does try to keep everything very level and tries to deflate a lot of emotion out of everything that's going on, which is important for a manager. Different when you're a fan, obviously. But look, I can believe it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But fair play to him. I mean, this is our first time winning 4 straight in the Premier League, I'm pretty sure. And now he's broken the Fulham hoodoo as well. I mean, we had beaten Man City in the Premier League before this season, right? But it was an irrelevant game, more or less. So those are kind of three things that he's managed to do this season in the Premier League, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, spot on. Curtis has come in with a great question for Stephen. If you could serve Fabian Hertzler a meal, what would it be? But it has to have a German or American twist to it.
Well, it'd have to be like one of my bites hot dogs, wouldn't it? I think. But I mean, that's what's good about the bites concept is we could make it quite fun and do some like player dishes or manager dishes. I think, but I think I told you before, Joe. Like Fabian, I love him to bits. Like as soon as he was appointed, he came into the Tunnel Club while I was prepping, and he just like introduced himself to everyone. It just shows his class, and I've loved him ever since.
Yeah,
I think there was like a little bit of a wobble halfway through the season, but he's come out of that and he's absolutely smashing it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had my stay on Fabian after the Crystal Palace game and the Nottingham Forest game, etc. But at the start of the season, I went to the open press conference thing that they do with the managers and got to meet him, which was amazing. And he was just a really genuine, lovely, down to earth guy. So I think he is what he says he is when he joined the club, that friendly authority that's going to come in and bring himself not down to, but speak to you on a human level and not think that he's above you, which I think is great. Hope the nutters who were Fabian out apologise. I've already apologised. I've apologised for what I've said. Don't at me. So it is what it is. But I think, Phil, for the people that weren't doubtful, this run of form has really, put those doubts to bed, surely.
You'd think so. I mean, look, I think particularly with the length of a Premier League season as well, it's, teams can sort of just get stuck in a rut and not get out of it. And that's what I feel like happened last season. We had some insane bad injury luck, obviously, in De Zerbi's last season when we were obviously battling through the Europa as well. But all I can ask for in a manager is, are you willing to make adjustments and learn on the fly and not be so egotistical that it's either my way or the highway? And he's obviously shown in a short period of time that he is willing to adapt, and it's you have to be able to admit when you're wrong. And I think he absolutely did that after the Forest game. And you have to be able to build something that's going to suit the players that you have at your disposal. You can't fit square pegs into round holes. You can't tell players that they have to play this way when they're more naturally gifted that way. It's the manager's job to get them playing their best football that way and for it to fit into a broader picture. And he's absolutely doing that. The players have clearly bought into this new sort of brand and style that we're playing as well. And the fact that we're getting results with it is only going to help the morale of the group. Fabian Herzler has been speaking about the morale and just having a really good feeling inside the four walls at the club. And that is absolutely showing right now. So it's just been unreal to see as a fan. And one more point that I sort of was thinking about coming into the pod that I wanted to get away with, now seems like a decent time, is I actually sort of, as a fan, I'd love to get your guys and even some of the other viewers and listeners' thoughts on this as well. But I just feel more sort of comfortable watching games playing this style of football versus the De Zerbi ball, where you're just waiting for that error at the back to end up biting you on the arse. When the ball gets played back to Bart Verbruggen, you're on the edge of your seat, and you're expecting pinpoint passes and him to do something that he shouldn't need to do with the ball. And it's just a more comfortable watch under this new style. And being able to use these young, energetic players on the counter just seems like a way more obvious strategy. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go on, Stephen.
No, I mean, I like it. I think football's kind of going through this phase as a general, isn't it? Everyone was copying the Pep Guardiola way. And I think now it's up to managers to kind of look at different tactics, new ways of exploiting holes on the pitch. But also, I think we all know you need the right players to be able to pass it all the way back to your goalkeeper and do that tiki-taka football around the edge of the box. And it's not necessary all of the time. I think football should be exciting. We should be able to see individual brilliance, and that's what Brighton have shown over the last few games.
Yeah, exactly that. And Michael's pointed out that Jack Hinshelwood coming back from injury has been really important to the way we want to play with his versatility. And I think as we get more of our players back, obviously we've hardly seen any of Ferdi Kadioglu. I'm almost convinced that he would be a better option than Pervis Stupinian. Not to put Pervis Stupinian in the mud. He's good at what he does, but he does get caught out quite a lot. And I think Ferdy's that sort of long-term vision of a replacement for him as we move forward, and a more versatile option as well. Someone that could swap flanks, could sort of dip in centrally as well if he needed to, and just more fluidity in tactics, because I think that's what we see from Fabian Herzler as well. Is he's not afraid to rip it up, burn the tactics in front of his players and start again. And that's probably what's won me back, really, is admitting that, I'm not perfect, and I can move forward from this, and we can get results by, playing sometimes not very easy to watch football, but we're going to get the results. And that's the most important thing. Everybody always says football is a results business. If it's 1-0 at the end of the game and you've played awful football, but you still won the game, it's 3 points at the end of the day. So we'll take it. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Luke saying that the De Zerbi cam was brilliant, and he always misses that. I enjoyed the João Pedro cam. I thought that was quite interesting as well. Maybe we need to see a Fabian Hertzler cam as well. Phil says, I think all the noise around January transfer window just disrupts or unnerves the team. We're playing much more like a team again. Really pleased that Van Hecke got a goal at last. I mean, let's talk about the goal then, Phil.
Wait, hang on, Joe.
Sorry,
there's one. Phil sort of raises a good point before we get to the goal. Apologies.
No, go.
We saw Dunkey the other night at the darts, and it was hilarious. and he had the Hertzler in, Hertzler out, Hertzler in, and very funny, very funny. But I did sort of pick up on a slightly more serious side to that, and this is something that Dagan, one friend of the show, obviously has been speaking a lot about in our WhatsApp group as well. But the messaging from fans, it gets through to the players, whether they like it or not, whether they try to, blank it all out or they don't. Some of what the fans are calling for does get through to the players. It's important to remember that. And so to Phil's point around the January transfer window, there are a lot of fans that sort of just, look over and think that the grass is going to be greener when we bring in whoever in January, when really the improvement needs to come from within the existing squad, particularly in January. In summer, yeah, sure, go out and find some new players. But to your point, yeah, some of that can be disruptive. And I think from what Dunkey did the other night, that's a perfect example that some of this stuff actually, does reach the playing group, and it can have a negative impact on the team and the morale of the team as well. So credit to the team and the players again for being able to fight through some of that adversity that they had to during the December-January period.
Yeah, Joanna's just highlighting as well that on the Seagull Social podcast, they were talking about Paul Barber had even spoken to the team about the Forest match. Stephen, do you sort of agree with that? The higher ups also talking to the players of, setting the standards as well, or do you think that should just be left to the coach?
That's a good question. I think initially it should be left to the coach, but having worked underneath Paul Barber, I see he's a very hands-on managing director. He's walking through the stadium in match day. He's coming into the kitchen and saying hello to me. Those are all the things that give him the character that he's got. And, he's an amazing, chief of Brighton Football Club. He is running that club really, really well. And if that's the way he feels it should be run, and it's obviously worked as well. He spoke to them after the Forest match, and you've seen a drastic improvement. And sometimes that's all it needs, is something a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, to be honest. And a lot of people get up in arms about Paul Barber speaking to the media every other week about how the club's run and, our transfer policy and stuff like that. But Phil, do you sort of just, we've seen it work time and time again. It's still working now. We've gotten rid of Caicedo, McAllister, God knows who else under the sun, and we're still getting results in the Premier League. Do you have any issue with Paul Barber talking so highly about how the club's run? For me, it's confusing because it's like, well, we should be proud of it, no?
Yeah, I think we just have to live with it and understand that that's our reality right now. We can be upset about it and whatever, but it is what it is, and you just have to learn to live with it. I mean, it will be interesting to see if any of that modeling changes, if we are able to go on and get back to Europe or even potentially the Champions League next season, and just whether that influences some of the ambitions of our top level players. Because again, sort of a lot of them are a case-by-case basis. We have to remember that Caicedo, he probably just wanted to go and live in London. McAllister, he always wanted to go and play at one of the big clubs, and no fan or anyone inside the club begrudged him of that. And we've watched him go and excel at Liverpool and are enjoying his journey as well. Matoma, the Saudi come with their oil money in January, and Karu, to his credit, is like, no, I want to play good football. I want to play football at this club. I love this club. And even though there was, what was it, like 80 million quid on the table, the club said, no, he doesn't want to leave. So we're not selling him. And it would have been obviously a massive amount of money to yield. But to the club's credit, they have sort of been listening to a lot of the players on the transactions overall as well. So if we are able to go on and make Champions League, and you just sort of, I suppose, observe the morale of the team right now and how the players are acting before games, during games, after games, Rutter and Baleba, the way they're dancing back up the tunnel after games, it looks like a pretty united team in there right now. And honestly, which of those players is going to want to leave outside of the ones that perhaps aren't getting the opportunity sort of at the back end of that squad? So yeah, it is a case by case, and we just have to, at the end of the day, we just have to live with the modeling, because it is working.
Yeah, exactly that. And, we can think of, we want them to stay, etc. But when the time's right, that they will move on. And that's always been the club's motto for as long as we've sort of been pushing for the Premier League. Paul Barber's consistently always said that he would never stand in the player's way, or Tony Bloom. I think there was talk of way back when we had Dale Stephens in the Championship, and he wanted to move to Burnley in the Premier League, and we didn't let him go, and we sort of laid the foundation there. So it's waiting for that moment, really, where we think, actually, we're a club that are pushing for Europe, hopefully consistently, and we can offer this to players and say, look, be at Brighton and stay at Brighton. You're just waiting for that sort of transition. Phil mentioned the dancing in the tunnel on the way back up to the dressing rooms. Stephen, do you see much of that? Is that like a highlight of people's week? Do they rush back in to see what Believer's up to?
Yeah, 100%. I think, well, for me, it's a bit different because I leave just before half time, but we do have chefs in the kitchen up until like 2 hours after the game. And they're always telling me about Believer, but also it's all over Brighton's social media as well. I mean, I just look forward to seeing him running down the tunnel, to be honest. He's such a character. And, I don't want him to leave. And just to touch back on that last point as well is that when a player does want to leave, we're getting maximum money for him. It's not like we're losing players for free or losing our best players for 15 million. We're getting the right money. And I think Paul Barber's got a difficult job when it comes to that, because, other clubs have lost their best players for nothing. Like Liverpool could potentially lose Trent Alexander-Arnold for nothing. And I'd be much more concerned about that than, selling players for 80, 90, 100 million pounds.
Yeah, exactly that. And with that profit comes a nice shiny new oven for Stephen Edwards.
Yeah, well, I'm very selfish in that respect.
Absolutely not. Phil, let's talk about the goal. Jean-Paul Van Hecke, his first ever competitive goal. He did score in pre-season, but his first ever competitive goal for the Albion. It couldn't have fallen to a nicer man, could it?
How good was it? It was just picture perfect. The camera angles, even from where he headed the ball, and you just see the curve on that after he'd headed it, and it just curved just enough to hit the inside of the post and go in. It was extraordinary. A good cross from Ayari, undoubtedly. It was Baleba that picked up the foul, I'm pretty sure. And I mean, I'll turn to the sort of the more hardcore football nerds, but probably not good defending from a Fulham perspective. Like, all of their defenders just seemed to be guarding that space right in front of goal, not sort of behind goal, where all our players had set themselves up. And I think there's been a little bit of copycat going on throughout the Premier League with a lot of those formations and how people are setting up from set players as well, with a lot of their players at the back. But there was enough I suppose, distraction by the likes of Joao Pedro weaving in and across and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, Van Hecke was just running a straight line at the back and was completely unmarked. So he had every opportunity to get a bit of a run and a jump at it, make clean contact on his head, and fair play to him, because execution on the header was to perfection. And I don't know if it was Herzler or one of the teammates after the game saying this, but apparently he has been working a lot behind the scenes on set piece and on his headers and that kind of thing. And you do see some of the better centre backs making an impact up that end of the park, namely Arsenal's centre backs, of course. So for him to start to potentially be developing that part of his game as well, beware opposition teams. But yeah, fair play. What a header. Just extraordinary. And the way that he celebrated afterwards was just unreal. Unreal. Celebrating with the players, and then they all start to wander back to halfway, and then he just runs back and gives one more big one to the fans as well. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. Also celebrating in front of the where the player's family sits, and I believe the Van Hecke family were actually over to watch this game, so there couldn't have been a better time for him to leap like a salmon and put it into the back of the net. It was very satisfying from where we were looking, and I've got a guy that sits next to me, Joe, who's been on the podcast before as well. Every corner, every free kick we get, he goes, "It's Van Hecke's turn. It's Van Hecke's turn," and he's been saying it. I think he said it about 50 times this season. And finally it was his turn. The limbs from him alone were unreal. So fair play. But yeah, I mean, Phil has said in the comments, not this Phil, the other Phil, saying that Van Hecke has been a revelation this season and must be one of the first names on the team sheet. Stephen, do you agree with that? Do you think what's been your view on Jan Paul this season?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like we've had a lot of new signings, and I think they've all done pretty well. But Jean Paul has done the best. You know, he's cemented his place in a position that we've needed. I've always felt we've always been a bit weak at centre back. As much as I love Lewis Dunk, I think he can be a little bit. Have a bit of a calamity sometimes in him, whereas I think we need to be solid at the back if we're going to move up the table.
Yeah, I think with Dunkey, it's been like he came into probably his best form in that season, that first season with De Zerbi, and had an understudy next to him in Levi Colwill, who but by the end of the season was doing really well for us, and then. Last season, he then had Jan-Paul Van Hecke come in next to him. So it's been that balance of, but now Jan-Paul Van Hecke is rising to the top as our best centre-back. Dunkey's got injured and Webster's come in and has been incredible. What have you made of Adam Webster as well? Was you one of those that had written him off, Stephen, or did you think he could come back into form?
Well, I've always liked him. I think I do see him more as like a squad player, but especially with the amount of injuries every team is getting at the moment, you're only as good as your squad, and that's the same in any profession, isn't it? So we need these players that not only when they have the opportunity, but to shine. You can't have a starting 11 team on the bench ready to come on. They need to be at the right level, that they're not moaning. They understand that they are part of the squad, and when they do have the opportunity, they're fighting for that place. And I think if you look at Brighton's team compared to a lot of competitors, I think Herzler does give them the opportunity. Do you know what I mean? I know we say about certain players definitely being in the starting 11, but actually there's room for movement in there as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And Phil, I mean, if Lewis Dunk comes back from injury at any point in this season, surely he doesn't walk straight back into the side. Like, I know we've had this conversation before, but this partnership between Van Hecke and Webster has been just unreal. I mean, Jan-Paul Van Hecke got an 8.4 man of the match performance on FOTMob. Webster was a 7.7. So this partnership is an absolute dream for us.
Yeah, there's no chance. Like, this plain and simply, there's no chance of that. Michael Webster, Adam's namesake, makes a good point that he looks so much better playing on the left as well. But yeah, like Van Hecke, as it's been mentioned, is one of the first names on the team sheet. And with the form that Webster's been in the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, he's one of the other first names on the team sheet for mine. So I'm sorry, like that's just the reality that this team is facing right now. They've been too good. They've been too good, plain and simply.
Yeah, exactly that. I also wanted to mention a very important part of the goal was down to Jack Hinchelwood sort of blocking Van Hecke's man marker, just running across Bassey, stopping him in his tracks, and then Van Hecke's there to put it home. So yeah, those little tactics that maybe you don't see unless you watch it again are just absolutely brilliant and give us the extra little bit of space to score. And obviously I hope Van Hecke continues in that vein as well.
Can't believe it took 41 minutes to mention Jack Hinchelwood's name. Shame on us.
I know. Absolute shame. What a man. I mean, Stephen, talk about his versatility. I mean, he played at right back on Saturday, has played in midfield, has been named in a lot of fans' best pairing with Belieber. Do you see Hinchelwood as that sort of long-term Pascal Gross replacement, or is that too much?
I still see him as that Mr. Utility. Like I said, he is able to come in, and we need to have players like that in the squads that aren't just one position. It would be great to see him get a run in the team in one position for a period of time. I think he deserves that. But also I would say his biggest quality is that versatility.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, as the second half went on, it was one of those games where it's like on a knife edge. We scored 2 goals that were rightly called offside. Phil, did you feel like as you was watching it back that we were going to be the team in ascendancy and nick something at the end, or what was your feeling towards the end of the game?
Yeah, and what a ball that was from Webster, by the way. That was the Adingra goal, but yeah, like, and I agree with Hertzler. He said it at full time. We were the side pushing. We were the side trying to win it. We sort of knew that that's probably how it would play out as well. If it was even in the second half, Fulham were probably going to be happy pinching another point from the Amex, like last season. So I think we deserved the win on balance within that 90 minutes. I also think that even though, yes, like it took every last second for us to find the eventual winner, just on the balance of how this season has unfolded and some of the points that we've lost along the way, this felt like sort of a balancing out for mine in terms of, obviously you replay that game over and over again, and there are a lot of worlds where we only pick up the 1 point rather than 3. So I think on total balance, it was a really fair result in terms of that 90 minutes, but also how our season has kind of unfolded as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And let's not beat around the bush any longer. Let's talk about the penalty incident in the 90. I can't remember what minute it was awarded.
It was the 96th.
96th minute, the penalty was awarded. I mean, I was probably one of those fans that was getting rather frustrated of us patiently trying to work the ball into the box in the 96th minute and not just pumping it into the mixer. But it was that won us a penalty. And I think we were quite fortuitous with how it sort of bounced off of the Fulham centre-back's legs. And Danny Welbeck found João Pedro in a little bit of space and he gets there first. Stephen, did you think it was a penalty?
Yeah, 100%. There wasn't any doubt. I felt like the goal was coming. I know as time was going on, you're thinking, is this going to be another draw? Because Brighton have drawn a lot of games this season. But I don't think Fulham deserved anything from the game. And I'm sure I've seen Brighton-Fulham games where we've been all over them before and they've won 2-1. Was that last season?
A couple of seasons ago.
Was that? Yeah, I just remember they broke on the counter attack. They literally only had 2 shots on target, and that's what's good with football. I think luck does come around, and we made our luck.
Was that the game? I think it was De Zerbi era, and Willian.
Yes, it was on the left-hand side. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I don't know why that stands out in my mind, but it was like we were attacked. We just couldn't get the ball in the net, and they just scored from the one opportunity that they had. Maybe it was 1-0 or 2-1, but they didn't deserve that.
And faked God knows how many head injuries. It did take them 35 minutes to start time wasting, which is when they went 1-0 up, by the way. So yeah, no shocks there. Fulham time wasting at the Annex. But we got our just rewards, didn't we, Phil, with that penalty? And did you, as you say, you felt the goal was coming? So what was your sort of take on the build up to the penalty?
Well, poor Harrison Reed. He'd come on about 10-15 minutes before that, and the expert commentator made a comment saying, Harrison Reed, he never lets Fulham down.
Curse of the commentator.
So classic commentator's curse on that one. But look, fair play to the boys for getting the ball in the box one last time. The fans were clamoring for it when we were in the build up. Get the ball in there, last chance. And obviously Joao Pedro, as much as he's an expert at putting penalties away, he's becoming a bit of an expert of yielding penalties as well, just with his play. He did it several times in the Europa last season. He did it just the other week as well, of course. I'm pretty sure that was the Bournemouth game. And he's done it again here. And, what a weapon. A weapon when the ball does go on that spot as well.
Exactly. And obviously Danny Welbeck was the first man over to Joao Pedro to congratulate him in winning the penalty. I don't know if you guys saw, there was like an angle of Joao Pedro winning the penalty, and you could see like almost the whole of the half that we were attacking. And when we win the penalty, Pervis Estupiñán runs as if we'd scored to the bench. So I wonder how Joao feels about that confidence in him to step up and then score the penalty. I mean, Stephen, it would have made Estupiñán look a little bit silly if he'd missed, right?
100%. And I think, confidence is so important for penalties. Pedro is super confident at the moment. We haven't really seen him go through too much of a dip. If you look at another game where Cole Palmer missed a penalty, it just shows how easy it is to happen. But as long as he keeps scoring, I'm happy.
Yeah, exactly that. Michael's in the chat saying, question for you guys. It's great to have 3 p.m. kickoffs, but why don't the TV companies like show our games? For me, it feels like we're on TV like all the time, because I can't go to the ones we're on TV because that's normally in the evening and I've got to put little one to bed. So I don't know. You're talking to the wrong person there, Michael. But I don't feel like. Do you feel like we've had a lot of late night games, Stephen? You're the one that's working them, so.
Yeah, I'd say definitely more this season than last season. I think, it's a good sign for Brighton. It shows that the TV companies want to see more of Brighton, which is important, and that will help our success going forward. But I kind of like the 3 o'clock kickoffs. If I'm not going to lie, it's a nice routine. For me, selfishly, it means I do the lunch at the Tunnel Club, and then I do the dinner service at Etch. Whereas the later kickoffs, it makes that really difficult.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Let's talk about the moment that penalty hits the back of the net. For me, in the stands, it felt like an absolute eternity from when he won the penalty to when the penalty was taken. I can't deal with the stress of penalties that well, I'll be honest with you guys. I was sort of like pacing in the tiny little space that I had, looking behind me, looking anywhere but the penalty spot. And then when Jal steps up to take that and it hits the back of the net, I cannot tell you. I've seen us win twice this season, now 3 times. So I felt like I was the curse. So when I see us break the Fulham hoodoo in front of my eyes, that weight is lifted. And the limbs in the North Stand were unlike anything I've probably ever experienced. It was so good. And as soon as that penalty goes in, the Europe again chant starts, and the belief then starts to set in. Phil, do you think that something's happening in the waters of Brighton? Do you feel like it could be another special season?
Look, I don't want to get aired. We've got to play Manchester City this weekend. So, look, it's too early. I'm going to do the Fabian Hertzler here and say, one game at a time, guys. One game at a time. But, I mean, this is just... How about the photo? Whoever took that when Joao Pedro goes over to the fence, I'll put it here for whoever's in the chat. But I mean, it was just such an elite image, and you see the likes of V5, even Cashin over there, Solly March, Karim Matoma, just getting around him with the fans. It was just a beautiful moment. Yeah, obviously, like the way that the group has responded to that 7-0 has been extraordinary, and we are playing some good, consistent football, and some football that you can kind of sit a little bit further back in your chair, as I was sort of making the point before. It doesn't feel like we're necessarily quite on edge the same way that it has in the past, and the squad is reasonably healthy right now as well. So you can kind of expect that the team, we're going to be able to put a really competitive team on the park every week, whether it is whether we do have to go to Manchester or whatever the fixture is. So obviously, I think a lot of us would be feeling pretty good about our chances heading down the stretch this season. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves either.
Yeah, I think that's a very well-rounded answer, Phil. Damn you for being so reasonable. Honestly, I'm going to have to start having words. Stephen, I'm going to ask you.
Credit to Phil in the chat as well. The harder you work, the more luck you have. I mean, that just sums up Joao Pedro and the way that he's been playing in the last few weeks as well. It's spot on. Spot on.
Yeah, Fabian referenced it as well. I don't know if you guys watched Brighton Unlocked, but the speech after the Newcastle game of Joao looking like he's running on one leg, and then he's then quoted in the week to compare the fitness of his team to a marathon, an ultra marathon runner, shows you the standards that he's setting. So it's quite remarkable, and fair play to the squad for wanting to work that hard for him. So he's clearly not lost the dressing room as many people suggested. Stephen, I'm going to ask you a unfair question. So we're in the FA Cup and could potentially get to the final, touch wood. Let's say, hypothetically, if we ever got to a FA Cup final and we could bring back Alexis McAllister for a one-match loan, and it came to be a penalty in the 98th minute, who would you have take it? Alexis or Joao?
Joao, all the time. Do you know what it is? Is that I'm one of these people that once someone has left, they've left, they're done. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not part. I don't think we should be bringing people back for these scenarios. Like, they've left the team, they can reap what they sow, and that's how I am. They're out of sight, out of mind.
That's fair enough.
I think Alexis is enjoying his fair share of success now as well.
We'll give it to Joao then. We'll give it to Joao. That's fine.
I saw a comment just on the pen as well. I feel like that was actually one of the best taken pens I've seen from Joao. Quite often he goes up to the spot and produces something a bit cheeky, and things that I don't like to see when guys step up to the spot. Rule number one for mine, give it some pace and some power, because it opens up the chance that even though a keeper gets a glove to it, there's enough power that it's still going to go into the net afterwards, and that's exactly what we saw with this penalty. And a lot of Joao's penalties do seem to sort of be put into the goalkeeper's natural sort of reaching range as well, which scares the absolute living daylight out of me. But that one, you know, it was to the side. He put it in a sort of a target where he could put some good power behind it. And yeah, to Leno's credit, he got a glove to it, but it was struck so well that it went right through his hand. So well done, Joao.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. Phil, I'm going to ask you an unfair question because I didn't see your answer to it in the group. So if we could win the FA Cup or qualify for the Champions League, which one are you picking?
Yeah, it's the FA Cup for mine. Give me that piece of silverware that we can stick in the cabinet at the football club. And I just think, I just think it's going to be, it would be so special to go on and win the FA Cup at Wembley, right? So yeah, for mine, I think that's the answer. And in our WhatsApp group, it looked pretty unanimous when Dagan put that poll up as well. Don't get me wrong, they're both incredibly special. That's why we're asking the question, because it's a tough one. But yeah, for mine, it's something more tangible, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. What about for you, Stephen? Would the temptation of UCL Knights and Tunnel Club be greater, or do you think FA Cup?
I think it's an easy answer for me. I think the FA Cup win. I think you get into Europe anyway with that. I know it's not the Champions League, but come on, that's a trophy. You've got then a trophy in your cabinet that it means something. It means you could look back on it. Not many people. I know we look back now on our European journey last year, but we want more. You know, you want to win stuff, and seasons are defined by winning things.
Yeah, definitely. Stephen, I'll ask you a question I'll broaden it, because what we normally do at the end of a podcast, we say pick one player who, for good or bad reasons, you want to point out in the game. But because we haven't spoken to you probably since at the beginning of the season, who has been the one player, for good or bad reasons, that you would like to highlight for the season up until now?
Well, my favourite player is Belieber. I think he's made me think who's Casado. Like, he's just completely taken that role into his own. And what's always nice is when you have a player you feel like you can never replace, and then another one comes in and does just that. It just shows the recruitment process is working. But I just love his personality. Like, I love the way he's so cheeky, and like the way he runs down the tunnel, and he almost feels like he brings the team together. Do you know what I mean? You need characters like that, and he's got a lot of energy, a high work rate. He doesn't do a lot wrong, and I think he's a Brighton player through and through. Like, when you look at the way he does play.
Yeah,
we've got two. So there's a thing in the NRL down here. One of the Penrith Panthers, they've won 4 comps in a row, and one of their players, Jerome Luai, has sort of been self-dubbed, and he's actually just moved clubs, but he's been self-dubbed the Chief Energy Officer, CEO, Chief Energy Officer. And it feels like we've got 2 of them right now with Carlos and Ruter as well. They just bring so much positive energy to the group. It's unreal.
Yeah, they're definitely a great bunch. Phil in the chat says, what would happen if we won the FA Cup and finished in the top 5? So I think with the points with the Champions League spaces, I think top 5 would get Champions League, and so we would be in the Champions League and have an FA Cup trophy in our cabinet. But that's a distant dream, Phil. Come on, I can't even think about it. It gets me too giddy. Phil, for you then in the Fulham game, who would you like to highlight for good or bad reasons? Look, I just think we can't give enough love to Hinshelwood. The versatility of the man is just
extraordinary. Our win-loss record too, mind you, with when he plays and he doesn't. I'll shout out Lucas BHA1 on Twitter here, but Brighton against Premier League opposition this season with Jack Hinchwood playing 46 plus minutes, 11 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses. Without Jack Hinchwood playing 46 plus minutes, 4 wins, 7 draws, 5 losses. I mean, it's pretty stark whether he's playing in the midfield or at right back or even left back maybe once or twice earlier this season. Just his presence in the team, how special was it to see Jack and Solly on that right flank at the end of the game? Homegrown talent, man. Like you just have to soak it up. The fact that we've got, him now coming through, the possibility of him playing his career at Brighton as well makes me giddy, despite the quality of the player. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm missing someone or something, but for mine, there wasn't like a clear standout yesterday. Van Hecke was great, obviously, and scored the goal, but it was a pretty even contribution. Even the players that we brought on off the bench later on, they all played their role pretty well as well. I thought Mats Vifa, when he came on, was good, replacing Baleba. So I'm just going to give the credit to the local kid that is just such a crucial part to what we're doing right now, and obviously the versatility that Stephen's spoken to as well. Like, what an asset, man! What an asset it is to have him, and the fact that he's homegrown as well. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and I don't know if the guy Michael's just mentioned it in the chat. A guy on the bench, Joe Knight, one of our youngsters that's in the academy at the moment, was named on the bench. He's also a local lad, and people pointing out the fact that whenever we score a goal, he's just with the team celebrating like a fan. So incredible to mention him, and obviously hope that he gets some sort of opportunity in the pre-season. I don't think it will come this season, just due to injuries and stuff, but hopefully is a player that has a bright future. For me, like seeing Jack Hinchwood and Solly March on the right hand side together for the final like 10 minutes was really, really good to see. And again, as soon as Solly came on, he had to do a bit of running. So he's probably like, Gaffer, you're putting me in at the most horrible moments here, that Fulham are launching a counter-attack. I've been out for 18 plus months and you're making me run a marathon. But chuck him into the deep end. The player that I want to mention, maybe I'm gonna cheat it a little bit because we haven't got Curtis and mentioned 2. So I'm going to mention the goal scorers, Jan-Paul Van Hecke for his first goal, competitive goal for the Albion, and João Pedro for the sheer work rate, the bravery to put his foot in front and win the penalty as well in the dying seconds, and scores yet another late goal at the Amex, which sent the Sussex boys into absolute raptures in the North Stand, which was glorious to watch. So yeah, shout out to them. As we round off the show, let's just look ahead a little bit to Manchester City. Stephen, what are you feeling? Do you think we can go there and cause a little bit of an upset and compile their misery?
Well, yeah, especially after the Nottingham Forest defeat. I was actually thinking Man City were coming back. I had that feeling that they're out of the Champions League. They're just focusing on the Premier League now. But I don't know. They still look vulnerable. They still look like we can beat them. So I've got a little bit of confidence. We're a team in form. They're a team not in form, and that's a good position to be in going into this match, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to push you for a score prediction, Stephen.
I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton.
2-1 to the Albion. Phil, you successfully predicted 2-1 to the Albion in the reverse fixture. Go on, give us a prediction again, see if you get it right.
Well, look, I'm firmly of the camp that we can go there and win this football game. Like Stephen's on the money. Like when they beat Newcastle 4-0 a month ago, you're thinking, they're back. They're back. But they were shorthanded in the Champions League against Real Madrid, and they got their pants absolutely pulled down. And since then they've beaten Tottenham. Well done. I mean, everyone's beating Tottenham right now, and they looked pretty toothless against obviously a really good Forest, well organised Forest team, and we're unable to score a goal in that game. So there's no reason why we can't go and beat them again. And sort of, the way that we've been playing again, we'll invite them to have sort of 60, 65, maybe even 70% possession and try and get them on the counter, the likes of Minter and Matoma and what they're doing out wide for us. The fact that we've got options in the midfield as well. Our last major test on the road, not including the FA Cup, Forest, pardon me, we had one fit midfielder and obviously it, things didn't go our way, but we're going to be able to go to this fixture with several really good options in the midfield that we're going to be able to sort of build our defense around, led by obviously Carlos Baleba, who is, as Stephen has said, is playing better than I've really ever seen Moises Caicedo play. We're going to compete, and I really like our chances here. I'm not willing to say clean sheet, but I think we can score some goals on the counter. So I'm going to say 3-1 Albion.
Oh, Philip, bloody hell. That took me by surprise. Yeah, I mean, I vowed always to go with my heart this season with predictions, and I do sort of echo what you guys are saying. This is probably one of our best chances to go to the Etihad and win. We haven't done that at all in our Premier League years, and we haven't beaten Fulham at all in our Premier League years. So why not break 2 hoodoos in the space of 7 days, which would be very lovely. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Phil in the chat. I think we might edge it 1-0 and score in the second half and just defend for our lives, which we seem to be doing extremely well at the moment. Obviously, under the cosh against Newcastle, we had to ride our luck a little bit and did perfectly well. Yeah, I think we could go out and win that. So I think 1-0. Joanna saying Weaver had a good cameo at the weekend, and I love Gomez. I mean, yeah, these options that we've got in midfield right now, are, as Phil said, absolutely epic. And Michael saying 7 in a row. Could we?
I'd really like to see Gomez start in this game. I know Ayari hasn't necessarily let us down, but that was probably the one surprise, I would say, on the team sheet, knowing that we're probably going to have to play Hinshelwood at right back in Veltman's absence. So I was expecting Baleba and Gomez to start. I know after Gomez's start against Bournemouth, he made the point that he was absolutely gassed sort of towards the end of that first half, which obviously fair enough to him. He hasn't played a ton of football of late. So I was hoping that Gomez would start the game on the weekend just to get a little bit more sort of in the, fitness moving forward. But I'd really like to see Gomez and Baleba start in the midfield and just see how long those two can absolutely go to war for us in that game. Because the highlights reel of Gomez against Bournemouth in that first 45 the other week, I've gone back and watched it about 7 times. I mean, it was extraordinary, the things that he was doing, and he's going to be the one that helps us create some opportunities against a shorthanded City defense. So I'd really like to see Gomez start, and I think Hinshelwood can go toe to toe with Doku in that duel down the flank as well, because we probably all still have nightmares of what Doku did against James Milner a couple of seasons ago. So look, I think Hinshelwood is well suited to be able to handle the speed of a Doku down that sideline. I've got full faith that, I mean, Van Hecke has done a really good job on Haaland in the times that we've sort of, seen those pair go toe to toe. And I've got full faith in what Adam Webster is doing right now as well. So why not us?
Exactly. What a way to end it at the field. Why not us? Before we sign off, Stephen, just tell people again where they can find your lovely work at the Terrace.
Yeah, so come to the Terrace opening for definite on the 2nd of April for the Villa game, and look out for bites and have a bites burger.
Do it. You have been instructed by the Albion Obsessed podcast to have a bites burger. So leave your reviews and your lovely feedback on the incredible work that Stephen is doing at the Tunnel Club and soon to be at the Terrace as well. Phil, any remaining or last words to say before we sign off, or was that the best way to sign off? Was it?
I've said it all. I've been hogging the mic, so I think I'm out. I think I'm done.
Phil, it's a podcast. You're allowed to speak. Right. I guess that just remains for me to say, if you could like, share, and subscribe for more Albion Obsessed content in the future, that would be we would be very, very grateful, and it does help us out a lot. Joanna says she's on the wait list for the Tunnel Club. So Joanna, I'll let you know what Stephen can do for you, especially. I'm joking. What remains for me to say is, wherever you may be, whenever you may be, we will see you after we've beaten Manchester City. Have a good one. Take care.